JUCK over.
We cannot allow everything to be stripped away from us because they change the formats around us, the traditions, the stadiums, the uniforms, the rivalries. If we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. And welcome into JUCK on Bucks. Appreciate y'all so much for there's not y'all. Appreciate the four of you who are in here right now. I was going to pop in here and record this puppy, but I figure why not just pop it on live? It's some good news. We can talk about it together. I figured like Chris Henry Jr., who committed to Ohio State in 2023, this was going to be a long, drawn-out process when he moved out to Mater Dei. So he goes out to California, goes to Mater Dei, committed to Ohio State, and once he got out there, Oregon was going to come a-calling, USC was going to come a-calling, and Mater Dei has been it was a pipeline to USC for years. Oregon kind of came in and encroached on their territory as they kind of shot up in the landscape of college football. And Ohio State never been able to pull a kid out of that high school, but does it really count if he was playing high school football in Ohio before he went out there? The most recent guy last year, running back Jordan Davison, who most of us all thought was going to be a Buckeye at one point during the recruiting process, ends up choosing Oregon. It's a little different, though. Ohio State kind of in the end backed off of there with Bo Jackson and Isaiah West already committed, and he chooses Oregon. That's not the point. Back to Chris Henry Jr. So Chris Henry Jr. goes out to Mater Dei, starts developing a relationship with Oregon, took a ton of visits to Oregon, flirted with LSU, and it got to the point where it was starting to look like he might be a guy who made his commitment maybe before he was actually ready to commit. And not that Ohio State was out of it, but maybe it was more up in the air than a lot of people thought. Nonetheless, his relationship with Brian Hartline, Ryan Day, was always incredible. And a lot of people said, look, as long as Hartline's there and Day's there, he's going to be there. I think in this era of recruiting, when you involve the money and the ridiculous amounts of money for guys that are as high profile as Chris Henry Jr., it's somewhat naive to ever say, as long as this coach or that coach is going to be there, this is over. Anyway, Chris Henry Jr. was certainly not shutting down his recruitment at any time soon. He had visits scheduled with Oregon, USC, Miami. So he's got all these officials planned. And last month, Chris Henry Jr. said that ever since he moved out there, it's been a little more stressful. Schools have been after him. And really, it was just Oregon, USC, and Miami that he was in on, aside from Ohio State. And that was the last time we had heard from him until today, when he relayed a message to Hayes Fawcett of On3 that he has canceled those official visits. He wants to be in Columbus. He wants to be a Buckeye. His recruitment is now closed. And now we're about to see the Devin Sanchez treatment to the rest of these schools. No, thank you. I'm not interested in taking your phone call. This is ridiculous levels of huge news coming off the news that we just got on Monday. This was going to be one of those battles I felt that was going to come down to the end. Remember, California, they're allowed to get NIL while they're in high school. And there was a lot of rumors that Oregon was offering big payments while he was in high school if they could go ahead and move forward with him in that way. Ohio State, of course, was not. Henry, not a kid who's grown up with no money, didn't bite on any of that. And now he's going to be a Buckeye for sure. And at 6'5", 200 pounds, he was injured last season. So his ranking kind of dropped. Still, obviously, a top 5 wide receiver. But at one point, he was the number 1 player in the entire class. But the injury kind of dropped him back a little bit. A big year at Mater Dei, who knows, potentially gets back into that top 5. But this dude's so freaky. At 6'5", he is so quick in and out of breaks. His catch radius is so big. He's getting a lot stronger. And as we look at his freshman year, when he comes in, you're going to have Jeremiah Smith as a junior. Carnell Tate, either as a senior or gone to the NFL. 5-star Mylan Graham in his third year. Third year. He's in JJ's class. Quincy Porter in his second year. And then Chris Henry Jr. in his freshman year. And the Ohio State wide receiver pipeline just keeps on a rolling. As we look at that class of 2026, the Buckeyes, who were kind of, behind the 8 ball in that class, slow to to get recruitments in the class because they played for so doggone long, which didn't bother me at all. Holding on to these guys forever is a very stressful thing to do. So they were sitting at about 40, like 40th in the country. And just in the last few weeks with the commitments of Max Riley, Sam Greer, Tucker Smith, number one safety in the country, Blaine Bradford, and obviously Chris Henry Jr., 2 5-stars at the top of the class. This class is now solidly in the top 10, and it's just fantastic. This is going to irritate a lot of the Oregon folks. They were really talking a lot of crap that they were going to end up flipping Chris Henry Jr., and it irritates me coming from them. It really does. Like, I get it. You lose battles. It's happened forever. Guys flip when you get out hustled and you get out relationshiped. Losing a flip by getting outspent, that really bothers me. That really bothers me when people are bragging that they've spent more money than you and beat you for a recruit and end up flipping you. But Chris Henry Jr. going to be wearing the scarlet and gray, and I don't know if it's going to be possible to see him on the field at the same time as JJ, because he's got a lot of guys to kind of hop over that are very, very talented. But if we could see that maybe just once, that would be pretty doggone cool. He's not a Jeremiah Smith level prospect, but he's that next tier below. And I do think he'll end up popping off the board at number 2. There's a wide receiver Keys in his class. It's just fantastic. But awesome news. So I just wanted to pop on and talk to you guys for a second instead of record this. Why not go live? As Buck Vader 1977 says, the curse is over. And I was wondering, Buck, do you consider it? Do you consider the curse being over because he committed while he was playing high school football in Ohio, right? So is the modern day curse over? We need an official ruling on this. I'm not so sure. The Duck Knight thinks he's still coming to Oregon. I think the Duck Knight it's time to give up, buddy. It's time to give up. When Stars Align says, oh my God, Oregon has been in my last nerve. Well, almost my last nerve. Michigan will always have my last nerve, and that's for sure. Juck is April Fool's in you. He just committed to Oregon. Man, I hadn't even stopped for a second to think April Fool's before I read that. And I'm somewhat like, oh my gosh, maybe I should have double checked. Hit the like. Our buddy Day 1K always coming with the good comments in the comments section, and I appreciate that. Kevin Barr says it's possible, but if he legitimately shut down his recruitment, then it's going to be hard for Oregon. Elijah says Caden Dixon Wyatt next. Caden Dixon Wyatt, Chris Henry Jr.'s teammate at Mater Dei, 6'1", really good looking wide receiver who was just the MVP at one of the OT 7-on-7 events, and he is awesome. But interesting with his rating, like he is a top 10 wide receiver in 247, and that's right about where he belongs. And then over at On3 is a 3-star. It's one of the weirder ratings you've seen in a while here. Matthew Bragg, he's Ohio State all the way. The Duck fans quack me up. Poor Billy McBride. Steely Matt says, poor Billy McBride is here. Billy McBride, our resident Duckeye that hangs out here with us. And no, I don't think he is. We didn't give any fair warning on this. We just popped it right on. But good stuff, man. Good stuff. In this class, I know, there was a lot of folks who were doubting this class because it started off so slow. I mean, it wasn't a big deal at all. Honestly, like holding on to these guys anymore with all these flips for a long period of time just sucks. It's almost like they get excited, they commit, and then after a while, they're watching all the rest of the movement going on in the recruiting world, watching guys get deals, watching guys make new commitments here and there, and they kind of want to jump back into the fray, and then they start taking more visits and such. So yeah, I'm over the trying to get the commitments early and load it up. I'd rather take the Saban approach and just wait till the end. Hand select your guys. By the way, no quarterback in the class of 2026. Obviously, we all know that. The Buckeyes having a couple of quarterback visitors here soon, a couple of 4-star kids. Derek Zammit out of DePaul Catholic was freshman wide receiver Des Jones's quarterback at DePaul. 6'1", 200, so about Julian's size, and he is pretty good quarterback, borderline 4-star kid, maybe like the 25th ranked quarterback in the class. And then there's another one. What the heck was his name? Tamello, maybe something Tamello, out of Omaha, Nebraska, 6'5", another 4-star kid, and he is he's got a little Brady Edmonds kind of feel to him. Not quite that level of talent, but obviously it's been difficult for the Buckeyes to get that quarterback in the class of 2026, sandwiched in between Tavian St. Clair and Brady Edmonds, both the number 2 quarterback in their class. So it's been difficult, and they're going to go, they're going down the board a little bit. We're talking guys that there are other schools and there are other offers. Well, Derek Zammit has Alabama, but then he's got like Syracuse and like NC State kind of level. The other kid from Omaha is like Iowa State leads his board. So you're not really talking about upper echelon guys as far as the recruiting world goes. But I think the kid Tamello from Omaha might be something that really excites Ryan Day when you look at his arm strength and his size, because he has brought up several times recently about Will Howard's size. He seems to be really enthralled with that 6'5" quarterback. He really likes that. So there's our buddy Billy McBride. He's here now. He has popped in, our resident Duck guy here. Sorry about your luck, buddy. Things are over, unless I'm getting totally April fooled, which, it's a possibility. I didn't double check. Billy Tuesday boom, sorta. It does feel kind of like a boom to me. When stars align, I was told it's Con 3 moving forward. I'll tell you what, JD Pickell's interview with the Stallions, man, really irritated people. That's for sure. Here's a good one. Robert says, this is amazing news. What's On 3 going to talk about for the next 8 months? They will choose another Ohio State recruit. It's probably going to be Blaine Bradford, right? They'll choose another big-time Ohio State recruit, because that certainly drives a lot of clicks. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. Kevin says, if it is an April Fool's, everyone, it's on board. Everyone's on board with this one. All right. So it sounds like it's going everywhere. I really just popped on immediately. Yeah, Bucks are killing it for sure. Bucks are killing it in recruiting. No April Fools. This class could absolutely be a really elite class. And when we look at, a lot of top-notch offensive linemen might end up in this class. Micah Smith is a top 100. I think he's going to end up in this class. Doreen, you're bringing the fam to the spring game, Nina Juck Jr. I think I'm going to bring my oldest son to the spring game with me. I only grabbed 2 tickets. Definitely not bringing the wife. Ryan K, Juck, when are you going to do a mock class episode? Hey, I never done that. That's an idea. Maybe I'll throw that together, buddy. Mock class. That's always a fun exercise. Always a fun exercise, as the Bucks have now 7 recruits in the class. 4 of them Ohio boys, which is pretty cool. Love that. And then you could have the 3 Ohio boys at linebacker, which is also pretty cool. And I know some of you guys don't care about that. I love it. I think it's awesome when you get guys that are, good enough to play at Ohio State and they end up playing for the Buckeyes. That's always a cool thing. So Richie Dubs convinced me he was flipping only for this. Richie was a negative Nancy about Chris Henry Jr. He's been talking about that for a while. That's for sure. Matt says the mock class has to be live. We want to do that. All right, we'll schedule a live. We'll do a mock class. I'll start chugging away on that. After spring practice, guys, there's going to be a lot of dull time, right? So we need things to talk about. Top 10 most impactful players. Maybe not, not the best players on the team, but the most impactful. That might be something. That's something I was thinking about. Mock class sounds like a good one. we can mess around and do that for sure. Terry says, Juck, will we land one of the remaining offensive line targets? Buddy, we are going to land 3 or 4 more. Micah Smith would be next on my list for, okay, this is the one. If I got to bet $100 on one of these guys on the board who's going to end up in the class, I'm putting $100 on Micah Smith, and that's great. Obviously, he's a top 100 recruit. I think things really moved well with Drew Evers, who is from Flower Mound, Texas. He came up, had a really good time. He was just up, and he's a highly rated recruit. He took pictures with a bunch of the Texas guys. He posted pictures with Bradley Pettijohn. He ran into Donovan, took a picture with Donovan and posted that. And I really think things are going good with Evan Goodwin. That is the first offer that Tyler Bowen made. Top 200 tackle, true tackle body, 6'7", 300 pounds. Matter of fact, I don't know if I posted. I did. I posted it in an episode the other day. Benching 350 pounds with really long arms at 17 years old. That's a strong kid. That's a real strong kid. But then he got up off the bench and he jumped. And I was like, okay, this is an athlete. Like, his film matches it all. I think he's underrated. I think he's one of the top tackles in this class. I think Tyler Bowen really likes him. And I know he really likes Ohio State. Like, his visit, this is a serious kid. And we're seeing these serious kids like Blaine Bradford, like Devin Sanchez, like Riley Pettijohn. Evan Goodwin seems to fit the profile. They're just really serious guys. And they're finding Ohio State to be like, okay, this is a professional outfit where they care about you, take care of you, facilitate your career, get you ready for the next level. And it's just like the same kind of profile guy keeps coming, and they're the best guys to have. So really like Evan Goodwin in the class, really like Micah Smith in the class, among others. Then there's a lot of guys that it's like, okay, like, who do they have at the top of their board here? Talking from the Buckeyes view, because I think they could get a whole lot of other guys, but we just don't know like what order they have them prioritized, you know? But I do think, obviously, Micah, we all know, but I think Evan Goodwin's another one of those guys that's really high on their priority list. Another idea from Ryan. Rank all 10 position coaches based off recruiting. I almost did this yesterday, bro. I almost did this yesterday, seriously, because I was trying to think, okay, where am I slotting Matt G in this? And that was actually the catalyst to my idea, which is your idea here of ranking them. And I think that's a really interesting discussion to have live too, because I know that a lot of us are going to disagree on that for sure. But that's a fun one because, boy, this is an animal staff when it comes to recruiting. But like, how do you slot, for instance? So when we look at James Laurinaitis, class number 1, he goes out and gets 2 top 10 linebackers in TJ Alford and Riley Pettijohn, right? And those were his first 2 guys on the board. So I'm always of the opinion that if a coach gets his number 1 targets, then I'm like, okay, he absolutely did his job. You know, so he goes and does that. And then you look at Keenan Bailey. Who was Keenan Bailey's number 1 target? It was Nate Roberts. But Nate Roberts was the 18th rated tight end in the country. Now, we all know that's a dumb rating. That's just a bad ranking. Nate Roberts is a total stud. But in that class of tight ends, there were 2 really, really bad dudes that kind of stood out from the rest. And then just a pile of good tight ends. He chose Nate Roberts. So for me, just watching Nate Roberts' high school film, listening to him talk, I'm like, okay, that kid's an absolute winner. So I rank that really, really high. And then you got the kicker of Brody Lennon, who's just an athletic freak. So I rate Keenan's class extremely high, but somebody else might disagree because they're just going to look at the rankings and say, I mean, this isn't very impressive at Ohio State. Then you also look at James Laurinaitis, who in class number 1 gets 2 top 10 guys. Then in class number 2, it looks like we might wind up with CJ Sana, Storm Miller out of Strongsville, CJ Sana out of Olentangy, and Sincere Johnson out of Glenville. Sincere a top 50 player now, which is awesome to see him climb like that. But the other two aren't incredibly highly rated. Now, James could go get higher rated guys. This appears to be a strategy he's kind of following here. He wants these 3 Ohio guys. And if those are his targets and he lands his top targets, I mean, that's an A, so long as you're doing good evaluations. And I trust James Laurinaitis to evaluate linebackers and the kids he wants. So there's a whole lot of room for discussion, which makes it such a fun discussion and a fun debate. For sure. Sage, Ohio, listened to Matt G today. Matt Guerrieri spoke today, as well as Tim Walton and a lot of DBs and safeties. Matt G is incredibly impressive, man. He really is. Kind of an underrated hire that, you know, for a lot of people really flew under the radar. It just felt like, all right, this is Jim Knowles' guy. Ryan Day let Jim hire one of his guys, and here comes Matt Guerrieri, one of Jim Knowles' guys. So it's clear that Matt Guerrieri, a Northeast Ohioan, which, you know, is another added bonus, is an absolute dude. He's sharp, he's direct, he's to the point. And it seems like, obviously, now we know he's a pretty elite relationship builder. And he talked about his recruiting strategy and building relationships. He's really good at it. We got to hear Fahim Delane, his, you know, big time #1 target from the class of 2025 out of Maryland. He was a top 50 player in the country. And Fahim is just a hammer. He's certainly physically ready. He could step on the field right now. He's physically ready as a freshman. Also, of course, we got to listen to Devin Sanchez today for the first time in that setting and just stole the show, man. Stole the show. We want to talk about the championship mentality to go along with, obviously, what we know of his physical skill set. It's just all there. He's the total package. And, you know, I was talking to Dylan after they did those interviews. Dylan's like, yeah, Thorpe Award year 2. Like, that's the kind of guy that is. His mentality is just like, it's everything you'd want. Sky's the limit for the dude. Sky is the limit. But some interesting interviews, and we'll go over that in today's show. Billy McBride, the Ducks 5-star tight end and top running back commit, recently shut down his recruitment. Yeah, that tight end, pretty awesome. I'm not thrilled with the running back, Billy, to be honest. I wasn't too impressed by his film. I thought the Ducks could have done better. But, you know, hey, what are you going to do? Ryan K with a great point. Not all about star rankings. You also have to factor in hitting your numbers each cycle. That's hit Larry Johnson and Justin Fry hard in the past. Justin Fry consistently below numbers, and LJ, you know, brought in a 5-guy class because the year prior you had Edric Houston, Dominic Kirk's late, you flip from Washington, and then Eric Mensah, who I'm starting to come around on. But he was a clear we need a number guy who was committed to Rutgers. But starting to like him. This is an interesting topic. So I had this thought the other day, and it was when Sage asked who lost their black stripes. None of the freshmen yet, but it was, who the heck was it that just lost their black stripe the other day? Was it Miles? Somebody, one of the second-year guys just lost their black stripe. And there was like still 5 guys from that class that haven't lost their black stripe yet. And I'm just thinking, like, man, that's got to suck when you're a second-year guy and you got freshmen coming in and some of them are going to lose their black stripes before you. That would be pretty embarrassing. I actually tweeted about this, Robert. So Robert says, did anyone notice that the very first thing Lorenzo Styles Jr. said unprompted was, I really like Coach Patricia. Not only did he say that, he said it's refreshing to have a coach who cares about his players, takes time for his players. And a lot of people, when I tweeted it so my point here is how many people were talking about Ryan Day hiring Matt Patricia and that Matt Patricia was this big jerk in Detroit and everybody hated him. And my thought at the time was, Ryan Day, we've watched like prioritize culture over everything to the point where he has the best culture we've ever seen at Ohio State. Do you really think that that guy is going to bring in some raging jerk? That's not happening. So Patricia clearly made a good impression on Ryan Day. Now we're hearing it from the players over and over again because the players heard what everybody was saying. So they want to get the message out like, everybody, this guy's great. So I tweeted that out, and folks immediately started thinking that that was the word refreshing, maybe a shot at Jim Knowles, which that's not how I originally took it. I can see how you can maybe read those words exactly and think that perhaps, but that's not how I originally took it. But you're absolutely right. He's not the only one. We've seen it from several guys go out of their way unprompted to point out what a great relationship they're developing with Matt Patricia. Pretty awesome. There we go. Richie Dubs. These are the black stripes we've seen this spring come off. Miles Lockhart, second-year guy. Max Clare, transfer tight end. Yeah, it's spelled Clare like that. Klare. Sage says Matt Patricia lost 100 pounds of jerk. That's a good one. Lossless, what's up, buddy? Yes, huge W. Lunatic Fringe, how we doing? Yes, absolutely great news. Fantastic news. And that was going to be one I was going to stress to the end, for sure. I know there's a whole lot of people that I got it in my comments every time I brought it up. Like, I don't have a doubt in my mind that Chris Henry Jr. is going to be a Buckeye as long as Brian Hartline is at Ohio State. And as much as I want to believe that, you know, just for peace of mind, it's just like when you enter the money into the situation and you're dealing with Oregon, it's always in the back of my mind, like, okay, I did also listen to Naeem Offord the day that he committed, talk about Phil Knight waiting for him to go talk about his new shoe. 17, 18-year-old dudes, man. That's a pretty enticing sounding thing. They love the Nike. You know what I mean? Lunatic Fringe said a lineman lost his stripe today. I did not see that. Did not see that yet. Anybody know who that is? Elijah says Dom Kirks and Simon Lawrence lost theirs today. So Dom Kirks out of Painesville, he is in his second year. He was committed to Washington. Bucks flipped him. He's a defensive end right now. He's so big. I think he's eventually going to be inside. But that's cool. Ryan K says, I like Lorenzo's interview today too, but I have a feeling Patricia's going to go more 3 linebackers this year and bring Pierce on the field in place of the nickel, especially with the D-line depth concerns. I absolutely agree with that. And I think we're going to see quite a bit of it too. And I think it's the right move. And then, you know, yesterday, Ryan Day's press conference, he was talking about the defensive line, talking about the interior, talking about the edges, and they were kind of prodding him to see, like, are you going to go into the portal? How you feeling about that? And he was saying, you know, he needs to see more. So it's definitely a possibility that they end up going to the portal for a little help there. Or he could be feeling pretty good about it, and he wanted to say that publicly so the guys could hear it. He's very calculated in those press conferences. He often says things that he wants the guys to hear. Absolutely. What's up, Big E? Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Steely Matt wants to know how the Ducks quarterback is looking. What do you say, Billy? How you feeling about him? You guys are really confident. A lot of the Oregon folks really confident about him. Now, look, I've complained about Ohio State, about the brass at Ohio State, you know, not really letting the media in as much as maybe they could. And Billy McBride says he has no clue. Lanning tells us nothing, tells the media nothing. And he is 100% like, he is so bad about it. It's like Fort Knox there. And even when he talks to them, he's got this like condescending attitude. I don't like it one bit. I'm not a media member, but I just believe in talking to people, respectfully. And I've heard him a lot of times not doing that. And I think it's pretty rude. So not a big fan of that when it comes to Lanning. I think he's a great coach. Bucks Forever shares this shirt. It's his favorite. Oh, Blue Wolverine with 10 JUCK on Bucks memberships gifted out to random people. That's awesome. Thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate you doing that. Billy McBride says, trust me, JUCK, you guys are blessed with how Day treats the media. Yeah, by comparison to Dan Lanning, for sure. All right, so the Duck Knight says, with 2 Heisman finalists, quarterbacks in a row, and he's talking about Dylan Gabriel, Bo Nix, Dante Moore is the most talented of the 3. As far as physically talented, there's no doubt about that. Totally agree. I mean, he always has been. Totally agree. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Colton Weaver says, what are your thoughts on Savion Hyder? Think we can get him. So had a good visit. He's from Virginia. Got to talk to Travion Henderson for a while, who's also from Virginia. That's great. But I think that, it's more Michigan, Georgia right now at the top of his list. And I think that Michigan is coming really hard with a big NIL package and the relationship that he has with Tony Alford, which Michigan wasn't really in this. Like Ohio State was in bigger on him until Tony Alford left. Carlos Loughlin's done a good job getting Ohio State kind of in this top 3 here. But the relationship with Alford goes back a long time with Savion Hyder. And I think he's going to end up at Michigan, to be honest. Buck Vader said, I heard we might go after the guy from Stanford. He's really good. Talked about him on yesterday's show. Really good ball player. Colton says he seems like a Tony Alford special and would suck if he went up there. I'll tell you what, man. I would love to say that too. But my gosh, that guy is talented. He is there's usually, when you review the best running backs in a class, you can look at the top 3 and they're pretty much interchangeable. And then sometimes there is a clear, wow, this guy's just a little bit different than everybody else. And Savion Hyder is that for me. Richie Dub says this not being able to sign up for YouTube memberships on an iPhone or an iPad is pretty dumb. Can't understand that. You would think in, I don't know, this day and age, pretty much everything is compatible with, both platforms. That is really strange, isn't it? Oh, the Duck Knight. We'll see you later, buddy. Dan Lanning just went live. You Drink It says, how could any idiot consider going to UM when they should know what's coming? Well, buddy, there are a lot of differing opinions on what's coming. We live in, I don't want to say an Ohio State bubble, but most of the stuff we watch and hear and people we talk to, Ohio State folks, vastly different opinion to the folks over on that side. And to be honest, the national folks really, they by and large don't feel like there's a big punishment coming. That's if it does come, it's going to be a big I told you so from the Ohio State ethos to everybody. Stephanie, how you doing? Stephanie says, if Tony Alford had worked as hard at Ohio State as he does at the Cheater U, he would have still been here. Just like with Justin Fry, I really disagreed with Tony Alford's recruiting strategy, which was very similar. And he definitely didn't coach like Carlos Lockman does. That's for sure. But I think ultimately it was just time, man. It was time for that split. The way it happened, I think, is ridiculous, but best for both parties. The fact that he went up there is just unbelievable. Stephanie, the JUCK creator. Stephanie, JUCK number 1. She did create that. She created the JUCK. JUCK OG. Terry says, Tony was a low energy guy, man. There's a lot of things you can say to insult someone that are, without bad language. Like being called a low energy guy is just that one stings. I would not like to be called a low energy guy. Robert says, I could not stand Tony's recruiting and agree with JUCK. It was time to part ways. Yeah, it was just time. Colton is not worried about running back recruiting with Coach Locke, man. Nah, not at all. I love it. I feel like it's in such good hands under Coach Locke's watch. And I feel like the guys that want to play for him are the guys that we want. You know what I mean? He's such like bringing the physicality, being coached hard. Like if you want that, if you sign up for that, you're my kind of guy. And I love it. Sean just got off work. Quite a surprise, Chuck. Good to see everyone. Hey, big news, buddy. Chris Henry Jr. told Oregon to pound salt. Posh, are you pregnant? That's the news that's floating around here? Kenneth heard the big news about you on X? Oh, it's April Fool's. Posh is 56. You don't look 56, so that's probably why everybody might have believed it. Don't say it like that. What'd I say? Pound salt? I mean, he kind of did. He kind of told Oregon to pound salt. He said, I don't want your melon green jumpsuit, which is the last picture he was in his Oregon gear. It was like melon green. What is that, dude? Of all the stuff you can do with those colors, melon green. All right, guys. I appreciate you. We're going to wrap her up here. Just wanted to pop on and say hello with the big news. Chris Henry Jr. officially shut it down. Going to be a Buckeye for sure. Some of you already believe that, no doubt in your mind. Others of us were a little bit on shakier ground with Dan Lanning and the Nike wallet out there, seemingly making a really good push and developing a really good relationship. But that's just going to be just as friends. He's kept Oregon in the friend zone. That'll be the end of it. Chris Henry coming back to the state of Ohio when he finishes up at Mater Dei. The question is the curse officially over? Because he was an Ohio high school football player when he committed to Ohio State, then went out to Mater Dei. I don't know if the Buckeyes can land his teammate Caden Dixon Wyatt. It certainly is, but we'll see how that goes. Things are looking good. That relationship kind of moved in a really positive direction on his last visit last week. So, at any rate, I appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Chuck on Bucks out.